Hello again, I'm Kate and today I have made a teddy bear. I don't know why, but I wanted a little broken teddy for Halloween as a little decoration or prop, and you might too, so I guess I'll show you just how I made it. Believe it or not, this little ducky teddy was actually kind of my inspiration, I guess, or also just kind of a way to see what kind of form I wanted the teddy bear to take. So I rolled out some foil into two big balls, one for the main torso and stomach area of the teddy bear and then another for the head, and then using some metal wire and of course some extra foil I attached the two arms and the two legs. I wanted it to be kind of sitting down. Of course I also used masking tape to secure it on. Then I got my clay and it was quite hard and quite a big chunk that I needed to use, so I had to whack it quite a lot more than I usually do. And of course rolling it out did bruise my hands because I didn't whack it nearly hard enough. I whacked some of my clay glue just onto the main body where the masking tape is, as it doesn't stick to masking tape as well as it does to the kind of crinkly foil. I layer the clay on and then get rid of the excess clay and smooth out all of the seams that I've made. And then using some extra clay I bulk out areas like the stomach and the back and even the head at some points, just as I need enough clay on there for when I'm going to squish it. If you don't know what I mean by that, then you'll see in a little bit. I of course use some extra clay on the legs and arms as well. So I do need to squish it like that, as I like the bear to actually be kind of held in my hand. So I, again, squish it even more just so that I get that form in there, and then later on I'm going to smooth that out so that it looks a bit better than that. I had the little kind of flipped up ends of the feet, like the toe area of the legs, and then the little snout that the bear's going to have too. And of course bulking out the face just a little bit more as I want it to be a bit squishy looking. Using my tools I just kind of smoothen out that clay, make it look a little better in some areas, like where my thumb is or where my pinky finger was. I just kind of define it a little bit better. I then roughly sketch out using this little scratchy tool, just generally where I want the stomach to be, and I don't want to put it on just yet, but I just kind of want to test out what it will look like, so I put in that little line there. Now, I didn't really need to make a nice socket, I could have just kind of gouged out that general area for this, but this is me kind of first trying out that technique that I wanted to use, where I kind of want it to look like stuffing that has fallen out of a ripped eye. I then put in some extra wire so that I can attach the ears as well. After attaching them, I do realise that they are just a little bit too big. I don't really want them that big after I attach them, so I do cut it down later on. And of course I attach them using some extra clay so that there isn't some sort of weird dipping seam. Yeah, like I said, just shave off the top just so that they're a little bit smaller. I don't want them too big. I thought that having them really big would be kind of cute, but I guess not really. I then attach sort of the ends of the snout area, kind of, I don't really know what to call it, and then cave in the well, it's not really an eye, you can't really call it an eye because it's not an eye, you know? It's a button. The other eye is going to be an eye, even though it's not an eye because it's kind of fallen off, but it's still an eye. But this one's not an eye, you know? I keep carving in kind of the stomach area, making sure that it's nice and defined, as I didn't want to squish the texture before while I was doing the face, but now that I, have done the face I can. And then I add some little paw pads, similar to kind of how the stomach looks, but instead of just kind of digging it in, I sort of add extra clay on top to make the little pads. It was useless doing it on the bottom left foot, as I was going to chop that one off anyways, because, it's a little poor broken teddy. Oh, so sad. Of course I do the same thing with the pads for the ears as well. Similarly to how I did the left eye, I gouge out an area so that I can add some little balls of clay and make it kind of look at least resembling stuffing. And I do it to the end of the leg here too, kind of gouging it all out with getting all the clay out pretty much so that I can add those little balls in later. I then kind of go in and make it a bit more defined, adding even more balls, making it look even more overstuffed and if it's kind of like flowing out. And of course up by the ear and in that kind of neck crack that I did earlier. I also do one at the lower back, kind of where the tail was going to be. So I could have done like, you know, a little tail on the teddy bear, but I thought it would be kind of funny if I made it look like the tail's kind of been ripped off. It's a bit mean, but you know, poor teddy. I do make sure that they are kind of defined, so it's not just like looking like some weird sort of infection. I do want it to look like it's stuffing overflowing. It was a little bit difficult to do that really, but I guess I kind of did as best as I could. I was contemplating just sticking stuffing that I had just straight onto it after I had done this, but I think that would have kind of taken away what I've already done, and I'd rather it just be, you know, clay that mimics the look of it instead of it just being stuffing, because really, in reality, all of my sculptures could just be other mediums, but I want them to be clay, you know, even if it doesn't look perfect or completely accurate to what I'm trying to get at. But anyways, I go back to that eye socket and I attach a sort of button looking thing to it, along with the thread in it as well. I want it to look like this eye had been kind of lost and then they replaced it with a little button. By they, I do not know. It's not me. Anyways, I go in and try and make it look a little bit more like stuffing, with a very tiny ball tool, just kind of scratching it in. If you've seen my other videos, you know kind of how I do moss texture, kind of like that, but just on a much smaller scale with one of my smaller tools. Then I make quite a few of these little pads. These are going to be kind of areas where there's different types of fabric, you know, how you see a broken teddy and sometimes it has like patchwork on it. That's kind of what I was trying to go for. I don't know if I pulled it off, let me know if I did or if I didn't, but I think, you know, by the end of it I think it generally does look like that. And then I texture the pads and the stomach as well using my scratching tool. I wish I did this for the entire body, but at the same time I don't, but like, you'll see later. I did fur all over the body and it was the most time consuming, difficult thing, but I love doing the texture and it's just, But anyways, enough rambling. I go back and kind of texture those pieces of fabric and then adding some more definition to the face, like the nose. This is what I mean by that fur texture I was talking about. You might have seen it on my other sculptures like Ludo from Labyrinth. If you haven't seen that one, go check it out because I love Labyrinth. But pretty much I just get little flicks of clay and then I just layer it on like that, kind of in layers, of course, starting at the bottom. And this sculpture was supposed to take me 2 days-ish. Took 5 because these little... this is sped up by like 30 times. It's like 30 times speed right now. At some points it goes to like 60. It took hours and hours and hours just to do this repetitive fur texture. So in a second I'll quickly just slow it down so that you can see what I'm doing. So I place down one of those little wisps. I then use this kind of silicone tool and blend it out, and then I texture them using that little texturing tool. You don't have to make them textured, but I just prefer it as later on when I do the painting job. It looks better with the dry brushing that I do. But I have done it before where I didn't texture it and it honestly looked kind of fine. If anything, it looked a bit more cartoony, and that can definitely be a good effect to achieve. Underneath the arms, I did, you know, have to prop it up on a candle so that I could reach under there, as I didn't want to pick it up and smush all of the details that I had already done before. And kind of midway through, as I was making my way up and hit the different pieces of fabric, I just went in and added those little pieces of thread just to make them look like, you know, they've been sewn on. Some of them, like this, I kind of make them like they're flicking off, kind of as if they've, you know, snapped off or been broken. Again, the point of this is to look just a little bit broken and a bit, but you know, I'm not kidding when I say that the hairs on the front of the face here, how tiny they were. Some of them were so small that I couldn't even see them as I was using them, and it was It's an understatement to say that it was a little bit difficult. But yeah, after that, there's this little seam at the top, but yeah, it's all done. Then I go on to make the little cabochon eye that's going to be dripping down. I add a little highlight and then the pupil, and then I go in with this lighter shade of brown, putting those little lines in, and then I cover it on top with this darker brown. After that's dried, I then get another cabochon and I put a little bit of clay on it, just so that it's slightly of equal size, so that it also kind of looks like a kind of coherent sphere. So I then attach the eye on the end of that and then add kind of some extra clay so that it attaches a little bit better. I then also do kind of scratching this little area here for when I'm using the thread, so that the thread actually kind of has a area to sit in properly. And then after it's baked, I have to paint it. I start off with this very dark brown. It's darker than I thought it was going to be. It dries very close to black. It's only just a few shades lighter than black, really. It's wasn't my desired effect, but yeah. So I put that all over, and it took, you know, hours. I say hours, probably about an hour to get this fully coated on, because I have to get into every single one of those cracks. Again, that's just, you know, the consequences of doing those tiny little fur pieces all over the body. Getting into those cracks was difficult. But yeah, then I go back in, and on the pads, like the ears and the hands and the stomach, I add this slightly lighter colour. Have you ever had at like Easter or something, those like chocolate bunnies, or even at Christmas, those chocolate Santas? This is what that looks like, you know? There's some dark chocolate, there's some milk chocolate, and some white chocolate in it, you know? I don't know why I'm thinking so much about chocolate right now. I'm hungry. But anyways, I go with sort of red and blue onto the patches of fabric, just kind of interchanging them as I go along. And then for the stuffing that's falling out, I take this sort of creamy colour and just whack it on there. I'll texture it a bit later on, but for now, you know, it's just quite light. It's not quite white. My camera is a bit dramatic. It's kind of more of a creamy colour. And then I go in with a lighter shade of red and then a lighter shade of blue on the fabric, just to make them look a little bit more checked, like kind of a check pattern, but I don't want to do a check pattern, so I just kind of do it a bit randomly. Then I make a giant mistake. This dry brushing takes ages, just to put that into perspective of how annoying this mistake is. I did that all over. Problem? It was the wrong colour. I meant to do that colour. I picked the wrong colour. Oh, it's annoying. I say I picked the wrong colour, I mixed the wrong colour. I do tend to mix all of my colours, as I don't exactly like taking them straight out of the tube. I use, you know, magenta, cyan and yellow. But yeah, it's just a giant time loss anyways. It was already very late when I was doing this, so I was getting a bit fed up. But yeah, I just dry brush in those little paw pads as well. I do add these little white lines, again just making it look like that sort of, you know, pattern that you would see on shirts. And then I go in with the kind of black touches on the nose, the thread and the eye. I dry brush in the little, you know, furry areas, kind of making it a bit dark around the edges, just so that it looks just a little bit dirty, you know. Then I attach the cabochon by using some super glue and then some thread, kind of going down that line that I made, and then I attach it into a pre-made hole in the stuffing up in that eye there, so that it dangles nicely. And then it's all done. Like I said, this was supposed to take 2 days, but took 5 as I decided to do the wispy fur texture, and in case you were planning on making this for yourself, I thought it would be good to just let you know how absurdly long it takes. I'm super happy with how this came out, a perfect little decoration ready for Halloween. Let me know what you think, and if you're planning on making it yourself or even something similar. Also, like I said in the last video, give me some spooky things you'd like to see this Halloween. I still have some time for a few more things. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and if you'd like to see more like this in the future, you can also subscribe. Have a very spooky October. Oh god, jeez. Have a very spooky October. I'll see you next time. Bye bye!